Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. This month is Small Publishers Month here at the Gaming Gang, and on this month's edition of Why You Should Play, I'm going to discuss why you should play Dungeon Crawl Classics from Goodman Games. If you're not familiar with this series, let me point out, this is not a review. I have already reviewed Dungeon Crawl Classics, as well as the Dying Earth box set for Dungeon Crawl Classics. What I do in this video series is discuss a variety of different reasons why I think you should play a particular role-playing game. All that said, let's swing on over to the other camera, because here I've got the softcover edition of the core book for Dungeon Crawl Classics. Do want to mention, this is not a review copy. I actually purchased this a few years ago from Goodman Games. In fact, if you have seen some of the Goodman Games reviews I've done, such as Dungeon Crawl Classics and the Original Adventures Reincarnated line, volumes 1 through 6, those are not review copies. Those were not sent to me by Goodman Games. In fact, the only item that I have reviewed that was sent from Goodman Games is the Dying Earth box set for Dungeon Crawl Classics. So what that means is neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any sort of compensation for me to share this video with you. It's important that you know that. I am sharing why you should play Dungeon Crawl Classics because I think this is a fantastic fantasy role-playing game, not because someone has bought me off to show for them. Super important, you know that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to page through this book. I'm also going to show you a little bit of a published adventure. In fact, one of the earliest published adventures for Dungeon Crawl Classics. And I'm going to discuss what I think really makes this a standout fantasy role-playing game. Now, of course, as you're taking a look at the book, I'm going to be talking about things that have absolutely nothing to do with what you're looking at. So keep that in mind. So let's jump on in. So one of the first things I mention about Dungeon Crawl Classics is that this is a fantasy role-playing game that has the grognards divided. Some think it is part of the old school Renaissance. Others say it's not part of the old school Renaissance. And in my opinion, it is part of the old school Renaissance because of how I define the old school Renaissance. So there are a lot of people out there who say if a role-playing game is not built upon the core mechanics of original Dungeons and Dragons or advanced Dungeons and Dragons, then it is not OSR. And then there are people like me who feel that the OSR is more of a mindset, a design philosophy, as opposed to mechanics. And in my opinion, Dungeon Crawl Classics probably captures the feel of the old school and the sense of discovery and wonder that you would have found way back in the day playing a fantasy role-playing game, perhaps better than any other fantasy role-playing game out there on the market. So that makes it OSR in my book. So keep that in mind. So if you are looking to experience the excitement and discovery of the first few years of fantasy role-playing games, this is something you really want to take a peek at, especially if you don't want to have to deal with things like THAC0 and combat matrices and some of the feel of mechanics that have just been slapped together that don't seem to mesh as well as we see with modern games. Well, then take a look at Dungeon Crawl Classics, because this takes a far more modern approach. We're rolling 20-sided dice as well as other Zocci dice. I will mention that. You need more than just your standard set of gaming dice for Dungeon Crawl Classics. I'll get in more detail a bit later in this video about that. But we have things like Ascending Armor class. rolling a d20. Rolling high is good, rolling low is not. Unless you're rolling a luck check, which is a little bit different. I won't get into that. But for the most part, rolling high is a good thing. Something else that Dungeon Crawl Classics also borrows from the OSR is rulings over rules. So you have a core base of mechanics to moderate a great majority of your gameplay without having to have pages upon pages upon pages of rules devoted to situations that may not ever come up. Now, of course, if you're not familiar with Dungeon Crawl Classics and you're seeing this huge core rulebook, which actually clocks in at 502 pages, if I remember correctly, and I'm talking about how this is pretty rules light, you might be wondering, how is that even possible? Well, the reason is because the great majority of the page count is devoted to spells. So we have different spells. We have different spell tables. Every spell has a table because there is a wide swing as far as spell results, which in my opinion is one of the big selling points of Dungeon Crawl Classics, because the magic system is a blast. It certainly is. Now, of course, there aren't big, long lists of skills and feats and abilities that the players have to memorize or have to choose from as far as their character creation. This does borrow from original Dungeons and Dragons as far as your character classes as well as your character races. So race is class in Dungeon Crawl Classics. So we have our wizard, our warrior, our thief, as well as our cleric. We also have the dwarf, the elf, and the halfling. So that's it. Those are your 7 options as far as your characters. But I've got to say, each one of those classes has something really cool and really unique about it that really makes it stand out. Now, something else that Dungeon Crawl Classics is really well known for is its low-level adventuring, especially its zero-level funnels, which tend to be a bit of a meat grinder, but are also very memorable. And funny enough, normally how the funnels work is each of the players are going to get a number of zero-level characters, do not have classes, so they can't utilize any of their class abilities that they would find as a first-level character. They play through the adventure. It tends to be pretty deadly, and whatever characters survive that adventure get to level up, become first-level characters, and then those become the player's characters. And it's really funny how attached players will get to their first-level characters because of them surviving that meat grinder and the stories they'll have to tell about those adventures. Gotta love it. This is not a role-playing game where your players are going to sit at home min-maxing, spending 2.5 hours coming up with their first-level characters. It just does not happen. Now, I do want to point out that it is a high lethality role-playing game, and really weird and wacky things can take place. Now, as I mentioned, one of the big selling points of Dungeon Crawl Classics is an absolutely bonkers magic system. I love the magic system because even the lowliest of mages can wield extremely powerful magics if they use spell burn, which allows them to spend points of their attributes to add to their die rolls. And of course, when casting spells, the higher your die roll, bigger and better the results are of that spell. Something else that's really cool about Dungeon Crawl Classics is also the spell duels that take place, because this is a swords and sorcery sort of setting. So magic is not as all-encompassing, as readily available as it would be, say, in 5e Dungeons and Dragons or other high fantasy settings or epic fantasy settings. Now, this is a situation here where magic is wild, magic corrupts, magic is very difficult to control. And magic for magic users and clerics is very different. Clerics channel the power of their fickle gods in order to cast spells, and their gods can get pissed off at them, which is an aspect of the game that I absolutely love. Whereas magic users, they can fail on their spell casting and have to deal with corruption. Now, there's an image inside Dungeon Crawl Classics that I absolutely love. It's like 6 stages of a magic user. And the first is just a young buck all ready for adventure. And the last is some sort of mutated, weird-looking, old, decrepit creature. I think that is hysterical, and it really does provide a great example of how magic works in Dungeon Crawl Classics. Now, as I had mentioned previously, each of the classes has something very unique to it. One aspect of Dungeon Crawl Classics that is different than other fantasy role-playing games is the concept of luck. Luck is an attribute. It can be spent, and it can be spent to add to your die rolls. For the most part, once you spend luck, it's gone. So as you're spending luck, your luck is literally running out. Now, thieves get to regenerate luck. Luck can only be used by the character who spends that luck on that character, except for the halfling. The halfling can spend luck to help other characters within their line of sight. So one of the special abilities of halflings is that they're little luck batteries. So fighters and dwarves also get what's known as mighty deeds, which is really limited only by the player's imagination. So every combat round, they can look to achieve something more than just simply attacking. So maybe they're outside and they grab a handful of dirt and throw it in their enemy's face, trying to blind them. Or maybe they try to trip their enemy up or disarm their enemy or knock a bunch of smaller enemies down. Like I said, it is all up to the player's imagination. And once again, Mighty Deeds is only available to the dwarves and for the warriors. So like I said, even though there isn't all this customization going on with character creation or when the characters achieve first level following being 0 level characters, the characters still stand out. They're still memorable. And I really like that a lot. As you can see here, all of these pages we're flipping through, these are all spells. And I know there are a lot of people out there who think all these pages devoted to spells make for a very difficult game to run, but that's not the case because there are various apps that are available that contain these spells. So a player who's a magic user, if they have that app on their phone or their tablet, all they need to do is pull up that app, bring up the spell, and enter in what their die roll is, and boom, there you go. There is the result of the spell, as opposed to having to consult all of these different spells inside the book. Really love that as far as the third-party apps that are available for Dungeon Crawl Classics. Dungeon Crawl Classics is very, very well supported as far as virtual tabletops like Foundry. In fact, I think as I speak, there's a Foundry sale going on with Dungeon Crawl Classics. Should also mention, there are loads and loads of really exceptional adventures in print for Dungeon Crawl Classics. A couple of authors that are really, really well regarded are Hartley Stroh and Michael Curtis, but they are certainly not the only ones producing really exceptional adventures for Goodman Games. Having said that, third-party support for Dungeon Crawl Classics is fantastic as well. We've got a variety of different companies that have setting books, adventures, patrons, because Magic users will have patrons, deities, because of course the clerics have their deities, additional spells, additional character classes if you want to expand beyond the 7 that are available. So loads and loads of support from not only Goodman Games, but also third-party publishers as well. In my opinion, I personally think Dungeon Crawl Classics captures the feel of classic sword and sorcery tales of old better than any other fantasy role-playing game on the market right now, outside of possibly Hyperborea. But I would say if I'm running sword and sorcery styled role-playing adventures, Dungeon Crawl Classics is my absolute go-to. Now, something to keep in mind as far as published adventures, Dungeon Crawl Classics is sort of episodic. And what I mean by that is the adventures which are published by Goodman Games tend to run about 3 sessions in length, some a little more, some a little less. And I'll be the first to admit, I am not overly familiar with every single Dungeon Crawl Classics adventure that's been published by Goodman Games. But for the most part, the adventures that I have had an opportunity to take a peek at all come across as being run in about 3 sessions. If you're playing a relatively lengthy session, if you and your players get together for, say, 4 or 5 hours every session, the adventures that I've taken a peek at will be finished in 3 sessions or fewer. And I love that because the adventures don't wear their welcome out. And that's a problem that we see with some of the OSR flavored adventures that are out there, mega dungeons and such out there, while being very cool, also strike me as being adventures that'll never get finished. That's not the case with Dungeon Crawl Classics. You don't have long ongoing campaigns which are going to lose their steam. So I definitely like that about the Dungeon Crawl Classics adventures also. There are excellent settings for Dungeon Crawl Classics, including the aforementioned The Dying Earth, which I have reviewed, as well as Lankhmar, which features Nawan and the city of Lankhmar, Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. Of course, it's based on the works of Fritz Leiber. That I have not had an opportunity to take a peek at, but I will take a guess. Goodman Games has done a phenomenal job with that based on what I have seen from The Dying Earth. So as you can see, loads and loads packed in this core book. But once again, I think here we go with the spells. Yep, magic items and such. See, all of that, this is all spells. So when I say this is rules light, I really mean it's rules light. All this page space, even more than that, is devoted to just the spells. So one of the last things I want to do is show you an example of one of the first Dungeon Crawl Classics adventures. This is from Harley Stroh. I will say that to my knowledge, the more modern Dungeon Crawl Classics adventures tend to be a bit longer. They have a higher page count. I think this is all of 16 or 18 pages. Now, this would be for first level characters who have already experienced the 0 level funnel. Just kind of give you a look at it. It really does capture the feel of the old AD&D modules. I really like that. Something else that you'll find in most Dungeon Crawl Classics adventures is a lot of interactivity with the environment, things going on. One of the tenets of the old school Renaissance is having interactivity where you kind of tease your players, where it's like, oh, there's the shiny red button. I don't know what that shiny red button does. It's probably something bad, but you know damn well your players are going to be pushing that shiny red button. So just a quick peek through, give you an idea of one of the adventures. As I mentioned, this is one of the earliest, if not the earliest, adventure for Dungeon Crawl Classics. The Dungeon Crawl Classics line of adventures, when it first came out, were actually for D&D. So I think it's around adventure number 66, where it actually goes to Dungeon Crawl Classics. So last thing I want to mention here is this carries an MSRP of $49.99. I do believe Goodman Games is on the 11th printing of Dungeon Crawl Classics. You can grab the PDF over at Drive-Thru RPG for $24.99. Now, how did I get my softcover from Goodman Games? I bought the first-time fan kit that was available a few years ago. Before I started recording this video, I went over to Goodman Games to double-check to make sure that they still offer a first-time fan kit. And I'll be very honest, the first-time fan kit that they offer now is actually better than the one I got, which was a slamming deal. So with the first-time fan kit, you can get the 502-page softcover. You get a set of Zocci dice. Now, normally, once again, $49.99. The Zocci dice carry an MSRP of, I believe, $29.99, $34.99, something like that. Now, of course, one of the aspects of Dungeon Crawl Classics that I hear some pushback from people on is the fact that it utilizes standard gaming dice as well as Zocci dice. There are apps out there, they're absolutely free. You can put on your phone or your tablet, which will simulate Zocci dice. So you really do not need to purchase Zocci dice in order to play Dungeon Crawl Classics. There are also workarounds for you to be able to get those results from the Zocci dice using just a standard set of polyhedral dice too. So the pushback of needing the Zocci dice really doesn't hold any water. So, first-time fan kit that's on offer right now, core rulebook, set of Zocci dice, a Game Master screen. I think it's a cardstock Game Master screen because that's what I got. Also get the physical adventure. Now, the adventure that's being offered right now is Dungeon Crawl Classics Adventure number 79, Frozen in Time. I have not had an opportunity to check that adventure out, so I can't tell you how good it is. I think it is written by Harley Stroh. I could be wrong, but I think it is. So keep that in mind. Harley is one of the top Dungeon Crawl Classics adventure authors out there. And something that I didn't get at the time when I ordered my first-time fan kit, you'll also get 15 scratch-off zero-level character sheets. Remember, I talked about the zero-level funnel, where each player is going to have so many zero-level characters, and they all go off on an adventure. Whoever survives, those are the player characters. How much fun do you think it'll be to hand out scratch-off character sheets to your players who then have to scratch them off to see what random attributes and possibly race their characters are for that zero-level funnel? I love that. And that's included as well. Those normally carry, I think, an MSRP of $14.99. The adventures tend to carry MSRPs with PDF of $9.99 to $11.99. So all in all, the first-time fan kit has really goodies equaling about $100 MSRP, maybe a little bit more than that. And right now, you can order it from Goodman Games for $40. You heard that right. You can get the first-time fan kit for less than the MSRP of the core rulebook alone. That is a slamming deal on one of the most absolutely fun fantasy role-playing games that is on the market. And I would say, all in all, the main reason you should play Dungeon Crawl Classics is if you're looking to have a lot of fun. The published adventures are pretty wild. Some are a little gonzo. So if you take your fantasy role-playing really seriously, all right, Dungeon Crawl Classics might not necessarily be for you. But if you are looking to capture the essence of old school sword and sorcery stories from authors such as Clark Ashton Smith and Fritz Leiber and Robert E. Howard, then this is definitely a role-playing game which needs to be on your shelf. All right, once again, that's why I think you should play Dungeon Crawl Classics from Goodman Games. That is it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this month's edition of Why You Should Play. It'll also let you know when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. And until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.